Book discussion, The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz. Just for people who are new to this podcast, we do book discussions here regularly because of two reasons. One is we want to keep a record of what we're reading. And second, we believe that the purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense of what it feels like to run a hedge fund. So the Not Even Wrong podcast is really meant to give people just guidance for anybody who's in the business of running a hedge fund, trying to start a hedge fund, or what in any kind of context of this business. Hopefully, this podcast just gives you a little bit of a peace of mind that there's somebody out there who does something similar, and you can listen to what we think, how we think, what we do. And one of the things we do is we read. And reading is not just a pastime of a hedge fund manager. Reading is the business, and that's why we take this very seriously. This is Not Even Wrong podcast. It's June 4th, 2022. This is Krim Delco. Since the last update, we're down 6%. The market's down 2.5%. For the year, we're down 43.5%. The market's down 13.5%. We're underperforming by 30%. Now let's get into the discussion of the book. The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz is a suspense novel. It's a very well written novel, and if I had to classify it, it's one of those things that a movie's made out of. So it's a movie plot. It's very suspenseful. It's interesting. It's inspirational, but it's very well written. And I think I want to say a few things about the whole the way I feel about it. One of the things is just Gene, sorry, but I kind of figured it out pretty early on what's going to happen here. And I think the reason I figured it out is partly because the whole setup is such that, the book's called The Plot. It's all about the plot. It's all about the story. So clearly you're expecting the most unexpected thing possible. And that's what happens here. And therefore, I think it's almost easy to depict what actually is going to happen, because only the most unexpected thing can happen, which is interesting actually, because when you have unexpected possibilities within the realm of all the other possibilities, then the unexpected possibilities by definition become kind of expected. But anyway, let's keep that aside. So other than that, it's a very well written novel. It's a novel about a writer who writes a story. I think the character build-up is very powerful. Like, you feel for that person, you really feel with that person. It's very well written in that sense, because that person has thoughts, has feelings, has that person has weaknesses, all those kinds of things that go with a character build-up. So I think what Gene does here is he writes about a plot, and he writes about writers, and he writes about the life of writers and how writers feel and think and all of those things. And he kind of incorporates it into the story, and that's very important. So I think that's the good thing. I think in terms of the story itself and what I feel about, look, this is a little bit like along the lines of Gone Girl. So that's why I think this is definitely a movie plot waiting to happen. It's about revenge. It's about evil, and it's also about that you can never take things for granted in life. The most unexpected things can happen, and I think that in itself is an interesting part of the plot, if you want. And if you want to take something out of that book, I think it's that you have this. You can never be sure about who is around the corner trying to do either good or bad to you. I mean, it can go both ways. It can go good, it can go bad. In this case, it goes bad. But anyway, I don't want to give the plot away, obviously. The point being, in life, when you really have this situation of, let's say, you're in a tough spot, and you think, okay, there's the good people and the bad people. It is very often the case that you probably don't know who really the good people are and who the bad people are. So this is one of the things that I think make you think in this particular book, that you really want to be careful about who is on your side and who isn't. In terms of the writer's life and the writing and all those types of things, I think Jean Hanff Korelitz writes about it. He writes about this, and there's a part in the beginning of the novel where he talks about the struggle of writers, and I think I can relate to that. Like, basically, you can replace writer with anything else: athlete, artist, hedge fund manager. I think the purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense of what it feels like to run a hedge fund. I think we hedge fund managers, we feel very similar to writers. We are often we feel underappreciated. We feel like there's this top, there's this, and Jean does a good job in sort of portraying that feeling of okay, you want to be on the New York Times bestseller list, the #1, the top of the top, and you're not, and that makes you feel inferior. So he writes about that, and he shows that that feeling. He does a very good job in conveying that. He conveys the feeling of mediocrity, and that's another thing. I think it's almost how should I say? It's a mirror image of, if there is a place where there's a top, there's also a place of mediocrity. In a sense that, well, you can only feel mediocre if there's something other than mediocre, which is the top. And this mediocrity, again, he does a good job in getting through. The main character of this book is a lot of self-depreciating, feeling depreciated, feeling down, feeling low, all those kinds of things. They all transpire in this novel, and it makes you think, okay, is this the right way to? By the way, this is not the main purpose of the novel, but I thought I caught up on this because I myself struggle with this a lot. Myself, I have kids that struggle with that. Everybody, all humans, particularly in our family, I think we're trying to be high achievers, and trying to be a high achiever by definition also puts you at the mercy of being prone to mediocrity, right? I mean, because if you don't achieve that thing that you're trying to achieve, you're going to feel bad about it, by definition. So there's this almost mirror image of a high achiever, which is, well, you're failing, and that's a risk you have to take. I think I keep telling that to anybody, and again, the purpose of this podcast is to help people also understand that, look, if you take the risk of, let's say, deciding to go on your own and run a hedge fund, which is a great, I think it's a great endeavor. I think we need more people doing that. We need people allocating money to risk. Somebody has to do it, but it's a very difficult job. It's a job with a big fallout rate. The success rate is very low. And the reason it's very low, it's because it's very difficult. So it relates to writing. Writing is the same way. There's a lot of, and this line comes across in the book many times. There's a lot of writers, a lot of stories. Every story is the same. All of those kinds of things, they transpire also in this novel. What we're trying to take away from this, I think, as hedge fund managers, is that, look, in the end, you can't do what this particular protagonist is doing. And I'm not going to give away what he's doing, but you can't do that. There's some talk of plagiarism and things like that. So those types of things on what you have to build on your own work. The more unique you are, the less indebted you are to anybody, the more you're going to achieve. There's a mathematical formula, achievement equals 1 over indebtedness or something like that. Like, you just have to push towards your own goals, towards your own unique personality. This is 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, part of our innovation stack. I think it applies to writing, and it transpires in this novel. But again, this is only part of it. I think the main big plot is something else. It's about a person that takes revenge. It's about a person that is being attacked by somebody else and has to deal with harassment and then the things that happen. All those things are, parts of the plot. It's not something I need to talk about here now. I think to finish this discussion, I just want to say that this is the kind of novel you read, certainly for entertainment, I think we can always learn something from novels. I think novels are stories. Stories are conditioning of the mind. The way we actually capture content as human beings, the way we evolve as human beings over millennia is by telling each other stories. So this is one of those things. It's a story. It's actually a book about a story. The name is The Plot. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think maybe one thing we should caveat here is that also we shouldn't over dramatize the story. The story is a story. It's just what it is. It is a story. It's not real life. It's not your destiny. It's not this or nothing. It's just a story. And I think that's part of I think what Jean is kind of showing with this novel. You can go a little bit too far. Nobody owns a story. I don't own my story. My life is my life, but it's whoever tells the story about my life, that's their story, not mine. There's no such thing as my story other than the one that I write. There's a difference between my life and reality and the story. Elon Musk has his story that he tells, but I can tell his story and it's my story. So stories are like ideas or things like that. They evolve and they happen and there's no copyright on them. So to summarize, book discussion, The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz. It's a very interesting book. I would recommend it for people who like entertainment. It's not the kind of book like the Grapes of Wrath, which will give you a sort of a century-wide understanding of where we stand as a country or anything like that. But it has its value. It has its value to its merits also in terms of thinking about what it takes to succeed in an environment of writing, and you can supplant writing with something else. And it also talks about the concept of the story and what is an identity and how do these things relate. And I think those are very interesting points. Thank you.